Let's get some reaction to the iPad from a major Apple shareholder. Turner Investment Partners owns about 2 million shares of Apple, which is the longest held technology stock for that company. Joining us right now is Bob Turner, the founder and chief investment officer of the company. And I should point out that company has about $17.5 billion in assets. Bob, great to have you here on Street Smart. What do you think of this announcement and of the iPad specifically?
Pretty impressive, really. I mean, the form factor was very nice, a 10-inch screen, very thin, lightweight. I think they struck a great balance between the iPhone and the Macs. The fact that you don't have to have a contract on it is impressive. The price points are good. So overall, as high as expectations were, I think they actually came in and exceeded those expectations.
And it was interesting to kind of watch the price moves on Apple shares today. Initially, when they started to make the announcement, the stock sold off. It's had a big swing today, I think about a $10 swing from lows to highs, if you will. Right now, near its highs are just off. The pricing, though, really seemed to move it. That's a big part of this and what makes it appealing?
Yeah, I think so. The price, then the lack of a contract as well. So, for $500, you can have a device. Now, it may not be the type of device that people want that much. You don't have a 3G connection with that. But nonetheless, $500 price point was probably a couple $100 less than what was anticipated for some of the entry-level models.
Let me ask you, because it's been your longest held technology stock, I don't need to tell you about the tremendous runs that we've seen in the share. Right now we're showing our viewers what happened today in terms of the price action. I mean, that price action alone today I think made you, what, about $8 or $9 million. You guys have made some nice money, I'm assuming, on this stock. Why do you hold it, and why have you held it for so long?
Well, we do like it as well today as when we bought the stock in 2004. Then the focus was on a device that was named the iPod. And then, of course, a couple years ago, we had the iPhone. And this is really the third step in the process with the iPad. And in each case, they sell the devices, they make money on that. But more importantly, what we've seen with the iPhone and this device as well is where applications are able to be developed, where content can come in from others. And so Apple, beyond actually making money selling the device, now has a way of making more money by selling the content and the applications.
Bob, do you see the mark of Steve Jobs all over the iPad in your view, or are you seeing indications of other key executives at Apple and their input on this device specifically?
Well, I would say it still is focused around Steve Jobs. Obviously, he's the visionary here and has moved each of these devices forward. Clearly, there's a lot of smart people putting these things together, but he still seems to be at the forefront of all these designs.
All right, and let me just ask you, I don't know if you've had any chance to see some of the shots of the news conference today and of Steve Jobs specifically. I have to, you're an investor in Apple, and I have to, for our viewers, bring up, obviously concerns about his health. Do you feel like he's in a good spot at this point?
I think so. I mean, the concerns were greater a couple years ago when Apple was probably a little bit evasive about his health. Not really saying anything until after the liver transplant. So some of the previous comments that were made were probably appropriate, that he's still thin, he's drinking water, but those are all natural things after a liver transplant. So
right.
At this stage, I feel like Apple would have to disclose anything if there was more than what's on the surface.
All right, fair enough. Bob, I'd like to just talk a little bit more about the broader market. We've had a lot of news today. We've got the State of the Union tonight. Let me ask you about the market overall. We did have some pullback last week. What's your outlook here for stocks, let's say over the next 6 to 12 months? Are we headed higher?
We are, and we believe we're headed higher because of earnings that ultimately will come in above expectations. As of last night, we had 130 of the 500 S&P 500 companies announce earnings, and 80% of those had earnings that were above expectations by about 15 or 16%. So we feel like the story of this market is corporations are very focused. They've cut their cost. They've focused on areas that are growing rapidly. They've got global markets available. and people have woefully underestimated the earnings leverage that exists at these corporations. We continue to see it. The market somewhat in disbelief and sells off around that, but that story is going to persist for a while.
All right, and then in terms of sectors, we talked a lot about Apple. You guys overall like technology an awful lot here, and just got about 30 seconds.
We do. Now, saying that, it was the best performing sector last year, so it's probably not as much of an outperformer this year, but it'll lead the pack. Healthcare and financial services should play catch up a little bit.
All right, good to know, and great to get some time with you, Bob. Thank you so much. Bob Turner, everyone,
Thank you, Carol.
over at Turner Investment Management.